On the 10th day of national mourning, the doors of Westminster Abbey unlocked as around 2,000 people gather for a final farewell. Just over an hour from now, the Queen's coffin will be placed onto the 2.8-tonne state gun carriage at the Royal Navy, drawn by 142 sailors in another procession to Westminster Abbey, followed by the King and other members of the royal family.
For all those taking part, this will matter as much as any other single moment that any of them undertake.
Britain mounting its largest ever security operation.
We'll have over 10,000 officers deployed. We've got help from every force across the country and indeed from some forces further afield. That's been many, many years in the planning.
Presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens and sultans, representing nearly 200 countries and territories, will join the Queen's family.
It's a loss that leaves a giant hole, but as I've told the King, she's going to be with him every step of the way, every minute, every moment, and that's a reassuring notion.
The service expected to become the most watched global broadcast ever, as billions tune in to a moment in history.
So to all the people of England, all the people of the United Kingdom, our hearts go out to you, and you were fortunate to have had her for 70 years. We all were. The world's better for her.
More than 1 million people will line the streets, London locked down, brought to a standstill.
I walk these streets, every day, every week. But this is special.
This is not just a once in a lifetime, it's a once in everybody's lifetime.
I've stayed out on the pavement all night with my sleeping bag.
This is the only place to be at this moment.
Britain's longest reigning monarch, 70 years on the throne through one of the most tumultuous periods in history. A life of duty and service commemorated as the world farewells the Queen.
Well, our UK correspondent Lucy McDonald joins me now. Lucy, the funeral is not long from starting. What can we expect?
Well, coming here through the streets of London this morning was extraordinary. A feeling of anticipation, a feeling of dread. Many streets shut down, crowds of people. There are snipers over there to my right. We can hear Big Ben tolling every minute. Just on cue there, 96 times that will ring this morning, and all, of course, because of this funeral. So since 8 o'clock this morning, we've had world leaders. This is the biggest concentration of world leaders gathering together. They've been arriving since 8. The funeral begins at 11. So inside the Abbey, of course, there'll be pomp, there'll be ceremony, there'll be music, there'll be readings, including one from Liz Truss, our Prime Minister. But at the heart of that, a family who's grieving. And sometimes amidst all this pomp and all this splendour, you can forget that.
Well, speaking of that family at the heart of all of this, two very special members of that family have been announced this morning as being a part of the procession.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard that George and Charlotte, William and Kate's children, are going to be walking down the aisle behind the coffin with the rest of the royal family. They're not going to be walking in the procession through the streets as the Queen's coffin moves from Westminster Hall to the Abbey, just that short walk up the aisle. And I think that Kate and William decided that they were mature enough, having seen how they acted at their great-grandfather's memorial service, that they could handle that. And of course, we all remember those pictures of William and Harry walking behind their mother's coffin. So I'm pretty sure that William is not going to recreate that. This is going to be something much smaller and much more profound.
And probably gentler on the two little ones as well.
Absolutely.
Now, we know that the Queen has been involved in organising this funeral today, and there's some very special touches.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the favourite things I heard was the former Archbishop of York said that he'd spoken to the Queen many years ago about funerals and her funeral, and she said she didn't want something. She wanted it not to be boring and to be short. And it is going to be just an hour long. She has chosen readings. I've got a reading from Corinthian, one of her favourite hymns from her wedding, The Lord is my shepherd. We've got Love Divine. And we know that she's chosen the lament, Sleep, Dearie, Sleep, from the Royal Piper. Of course, her coffin will travel from Westminster all the way through the streets of London. They're already lined. People are queuing already to get a glimpse to Windsor, and it's that glass hearse that she designed herself. The coffin has flowers from Windsor, rosemary for remembrance, and sweet peas from Balmoral.
Now, this, of course, is the most public way to say goodbye to someone for a family that sits at the centre of all of this. But they will get a moment to have their private goodbye later on today.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the big state funeral. This is the pomp, the splendour, the public face. They've got another service later for 800 people, members of the household. That's at Windsor. And then later at 7:30 in the evening, there's going to be a service, the only one not to be televised. That's just going to be a family service. And we've seen throughout all of this, the family having to put on that display, that traditional British stiff upper lip. Hopefully at 7:30, when the cameras are off, they'll be allowed to grieve.